Welcome to the city of Baltimore, the largest city in the state of Maryland and the birthplace to the American Star-Spangled Banner. Baltimore is a city that contains over 200 neighborhoods filled with history, a passion for sports, and the beautiful nautical scenery of its touristic harbor. Hi, I'm Jose, and I'm on tour exploring the city of Baltimore, the charm city of the state of Maryland. On this tour, we'll visit some of its popular waterfront neighborhoods like Canton, Fells Point, and the Inner Harbor. Three distinct neighborhoods with their own unique story. From the colonial architecture spread throughout Fells Point to the most visited attraction in all of Maryland, the National Aquarium. These neighborhoods were some of the most important in developing the city. So let's go on tour to discover the waterfront neighborhoods of the city of Baltimore. Welcome to Baltimore, the port town established in 1729 to serve as a shipping hub for tobacco, grain, and the city's flour mill industry. During the War of 1812, the British had attacked Washington, D.C., and then turned to the port city of Baltimore to try and cripple its nautical infrastructure. But Baltimore proved to be a challenge for the British when the people of Maryland provided full reinforcement to the battle. They had been preparing for weeks, gearing up defenses in places like Fort McHenry. After two major attacks from British troops on the ground and in their naval fleet, the United States flag was raised over Fort McHenry, showing little signs of damage to the fortification. That's when the locals, the privateers of Maryland, which owned over 100 ships, attacked the British. The strike was so immense that the people of Baltimore had seized about 1/3 of all British ships, resulting in the retreat of the British with more than $50 million in damage. The British troops moved on to New Orleans in what became the final grounds of the battle. Great Britain dubbed the people of Baltimore the nest of pirates and some of the fiercest Yankees they've ever battled. Let's tour the streets of Baltimore, beginning with the waterfront neighborhood of Canton, a neighborhood in the southeastern part of the city that borders Patterson Park and the Patapsco River. The neighborhood of Canton, an area of the city that has seen tremendous change since it was established, founded in 1786 by Irish merchant John O'Donnell. The neighborhood was named after the Chinese capital, Guangzhou, also known as Canton after the first European who visited China gave it the nickname. It's a neighborhood that contained a shipyard which famously built the USS Constellation. The quaint neighborhood of Canton, a neighborhood within Baltimore that makes up 350 acres, named one of the largest historic districts in the city. The neighborhood is a hip and vibrant area for young professionals, designed in 19th and 20th century row homes where the red and tan bricks of the respective centuries blend with the unique colors displayed by the neighborhood's popular storefronts. The heart of the neighborhood is O'Donnell Square, which has seen some controversy in recent years. Neighborhood residents petitioned to remove the statue of John O'Donnell, founder of the neighborhood. O'Donnell was a wealthy Irish merchant who built a fortune with the use of slavery. Canton's history is most associated with the waterfront and the industrial environment created by the Patapsco River, where the first significant industry, Stoddard's shipyard, flowed through Patterson Park. And much like the industries of yesteryear, we see yachts and other ships take over the waters in this side of Baltimore. Maryland is a state that heavily thrives on nautical excursions, due in part to its proximity to the Atlantic Ocean and the Chesapeake Bay, America's largest estuary and third largest in the world. And from this view, we're able to see historic military ships share the waters with small boats. From the edges of the neighborhood, we follow a beautiful walking trail, the promenade. It stretches for 8 miles from the Canton waterfront, creating a trail that makes its way through Fells Point, concluding at the Riverside neighborhood. Let's take a stroll through this magnificent park. The city of Baltimore is another amazing story of these metropolitan sandboxes that become some of the biggest urban cities in the country. And like many of these iconic cities, we've come across amazing green spaces to break away from the brick and high-rises. Patterson Park, the 137-acre park, is nicknamed the backyard of Baltimore, containing over 300 years of history. The park's pagoda was the very first place where the citizens of Baltimore rallied against the British in 1814. It's a great escape within the city, containing stunning attractions. Patterson Park, an outdoor escape that greets you with this stunning fountain, becomes a gathering point for the residents of Baltimore. And this marble fountain was designed by George Frederick, who also designed Baltimore City Hall. The fountain was one of the very first pieces added to the park, but one of its most stunning centerpieces is the pagoda, which is a truly captivating landmark that brings curious visitors.
I didn't see you there, sorry.
The stunning observatory at Patterson Park is a 60-foot pagoda with Asian inspiration, acting as a motif to the culture. Charles Latrobe, superintendent to the Parks Commission, assisted with the design. He had a fascination with Asia, which in turn gave us a splendid monument, mixing European and Asian architecture. The Patterson Observatory debuted in 1892 with a top deck that contains views of downtown, Patapsco River, and even Fort McHenry. And I make my way around the observatory, analyzing the significance of the statues surrounding the pagoda. A centennial monument commemorating the writing of the Star-Spangled Banner. The many children of Baltimore's public schools took part in dedicating this monument, paying honor to the brave citizens of Maryland who defended the city against the British in the War of 1812. The fascinating observatory is built with a mix of iron, glass, and wood, and its Victorian European interpretation of East Asian design make this one of the most unique architectures found throughout the city. The Gilded Age Pagoda sits on Hampstead Hill, where soldiers of Baltimore stood up to the foot troops by building trenches, positioning cannons, and creating a 20,000 troop defense system. A defense that led to victory and a turning point for the war. This is Fells Point. It's a special neighborhood. It was one of the early settlements that merged to create the city of Baltimore, along with Jonestown and the town of Baltimore. It's responsible for the early maritime industries of the city, building the famous clipper ships, which were small vessels that could move at faster speeds for trading along the United States and the Caribbean coastlines. These same ships were partly responsible for the British defeat in the War of 1812. the dynamic maritime neighborhood of Fells Point, one of the liveliest areas to explore the best of Baltimore. Visitors gather in many of the unique shops spread across the neighborhood, with over 100 small businesses to keep travelers constantly occupied. Fells Point becomes one of Baltimore's largest touristic destinations, where even a fun day out becomes an adventure with your closest friends. The neighborhood was established by Edward and William Fell, who saw an opportunity to build a maritime hub, creating the first shipyard in the city. It grew into a home for sailors from all around the world, with a reputation for its expanding commerce and easy naval access to the Patapsco and Chesapeake Bay. Markers around the neighborhood describe the golden age of Fells Point, where this era produced 10% of all ships for America, including the famed Constellation. The story of Baltimore's pirates becomes legend with a tour of the urban pirates' ship as crowds gather to take on the excursion. And docked at Fells Point, we encounter the historic Pride of Baltimore, a replica of the original vessel that was commissioned in 1977. The Pride of Baltimore was the first clipper ship to be built in over 150 years, becoming a symbol that represented an American city and state. The Pride of Baltimore, too, took its place when the original ship struck a squall near Puerto Rico in 1986, sinking in the waters of the Caribbean Sea and losing its captain and crew member. Aboard the ship, I take in the fascinating views of the river and all the beautiful details of this amazing vessel.
So this amazing ship would be a replica of one of the clipper boats.
The clipper ship is equipped with replica cannons to give that immersive feel of battleships. Having sailed more than 275,000 nautical miles, the Pride of Baltimore has landed in over 40 countries and docked in more than 200 ports.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
you guys have a good day.
Yeah, take care.
At the border of the Baltimore Harbor is Federal Hill Park, which gives visitors a panoramic view of the downtown. Federal Hill Park is in a neighborhood of the same name, being a defense post during the War of 1812, and residents actively engage in the game of volleyball. The park rises over 80 feet above the inner harbor. As I approach the cannons remaining on the hill, I observe the memorials of that historic moment for the city, as locals take in the scenic views of downtown. At the riverside, we get a look at the famed lighthouse. It's become a symbol in the harbor.
This lighthouse is one of the icons of Baltimore. You see it on a lot of the visitor guides.
Making our way to Pier 5, a giant red lighthouse sits on the eastern part of the inner harbor, becoming one of the oldest Chesapeake lighthouses still in existence. The 7-foot knoll house dates back to 1856, the first screw pile lighthouse to be built in the state of Maryland. This type of lighthouse was pioneered in the early 1800s, made to stand offshore in shallow waters. The 7-foot knoll first stood at the mouth of the Patapsco River, and along with several other screw pile lighthouses in Maryland and Virginia, it kept a watchful eye of ships traveling along the Chesapeake Bay, but fast-moving ice floes destroyed the majority of lighthouses, moving the 7-foot knoll to a preserved area in the inner harbor. As we descend into the inner harbor, we can see the historic and touristic ships lined up in this part of Baltimore, giving life to the city's tourism and becoming a maritime backdrop to residents at Rash Field, with yachts being docked along the marina in this exciting commercial waterfront. The inner harbor was the birthplace of Baltimore City in 1729, where industries such as shipbuilding and steel mills lined up its surroundings. This is one of the most touristic areas in all of Baltimore, the inner harbor. It contains the National Aquarium, one of the most visited sites throughout the whole state. In the 1970s, plans to commercialize the harbor went into effect as industrial ship vessels reduced their traffic through the area and remained downriver. Cruises like the Annapolitan II take visitors on a round trip across the inner harbor and other surrounding waterways to explore the larger history of Baltimore and engage with the fascinating views of the downtown. The development of the inner harbor to become a touristic destination was praised by designers and planners, being called one of the supreme achievements of large-scale urban design in United States history by the American Institute of Architecture. And over 1 million visitors annually travel to the harbor to experience all these fascinating attractions, like the National Aquarium and the historic ships spread throughout the harbor. And that tourism is on full display as residents and visitors crowd the walking trail on the final days of summer, boarding for a cruise on the Spirit of Baltimore, an excursion that takes you beyond the inner harbor to experience the waterfront neighborhoods from early in our adventure. Let's make our way to the harbor's largest attraction. The beautiful USS Constellation. It was the last sail-only warship designed by the United States Navy. Commissioned in 1854, it was assigned the monumental task of patrolling slave ships off the coast of West Africa. During the tour, it came across a ship that the crew set free. More than 700 Africans were rescued on that ship. Men, women, and children were all freed from slavery. The USS Constellation is one of several vessels docked at the inner harbor that becomes part of the historic ship trail. One of the most visited attractions in the state of Maryland goes hand in hand with its nautical history, the famed National Aquarium of Baltimore, a facility made of more than 2 million gallons of water and over 750 aquatic species, broken down into 10,000 marine life animals. A mesmerizing experience in a low-lit environment to fully immerse you into feeling like you're at the depths of the sea. Welcome to the amazing National Aquarium, where a giant whale skeleton hangs from the ceiling and is visible from the lower levels. This 5,000-pound skeleton belonged to a finback whale caught in the 1800s near a small port by Cape Cod. And we see the tour guides presenting the history of this attraction. The beautiful marine life found in this aquarium is world class, as this facility becomes the fourth largest aquarium in the country. The Baltimore Aquarium first opened in 1981 as a runaway hit, with more than 600,000 guests walking through its doors on the first day. By the first year in operation, the aquarium had hosted 1.6 million visitors. And the aquarium opens up to be more than a touristic destination, as a lot of its profits go into funding research, becoming a conservation to protect aquatic environments. These beautiful marine life animals become such a curious exhibit to visitors. Traveling to the next level, we can see the whale skeleton become the focal point of the museum. On this floor, we find the fun and ever so active puffins. These bright-billed animals are master divers, going down as deep as 60 meters. And our long-necked turtle friends show off their happy environment to get attention from the aquarium visitors. These long-necked turtles move freely while sharing their habitat with an alligator, a less aggressive predator than its ferocious cousins, the crocodile.
Now we're going to the tropical rainforest, and I can already feel the humidity. Wow.
The upland tropical rainforest feels like we've traveled to South America, with a diverse biological habitat that houses scarlet ibis, blue frogs, and birds flying throughout, living freely in this corner of Baltimore that feels like they're right in the Amazon. But hanging off the ceiling, I spot a sloth slowly moving across the forest.
I think he's gonna be there for a while.
And we descend back to the lower levels, walking through floors that are surrounded by a giant shark tank. Shark Alley is made of 225,000 gallons of water, containing a variety of different shark classes on each level. From sand tiger sharks to rough-tailed stingrays, visitors are treated with this visual experience of some of the rarest animals in the ocean. Like the largemouth sawfish, a native to Atlantic waters, these creatures can grow up to 23 feet when fully matured. I walked the aquarium just stunned at the beauty of these marine life exhibits and the engaging environment created by the National Aquarium.
This is a view from the aquarium, one of the best views in Baltimore. You can see the whole inner harbor.
From the Aquarium Cafe, we get a closer look at the other side of the inner harbor and the historic ships lined up next to the aquarium, like the iconic United States Lightship Chesapeake, sitting in the harbors of Baltimore since the 1980s. This ship patrolled the Chesapeake and guided traffic along the bay with its lighthouse service. The waters by the aquarium are busy, blending touristic attraction with history. Paddle boats designed in the form of dragons mix with the yachts going up and down the inner harbor. Families take to the harbor to experience a carefree afternoon, while continue enjoying the wonderful views from this higher level. Baltimore was a city created for the shipping of tobacco and grain, eventually opening up business to flour mills. In its contemporary environment, it continues to be a major seaport for the state of Maryland, with facilities for ship repairs and being a shipping point for automotives, opening to the sea through the Chesapeake Bay and the Chesapeake and Delaware Canal. The historic ships docked at the inner harbor serve as a celebration to this maritime city and become a floating museum of history.
Amazing. It's a Coast Guard vessel. So amazing.
As the afternoon slowly begins to fade, we're invited to get a peek of the evenings by the inner harbor.
This is the Baltimore nightlife. It's as exciting as the attractions.
Baltimore is a city with so much history that spreads throughout its harbors and inland neighborhoods. The waterfront is only a small piece of the city, but became one of the most important areas for building trade and developing Maryland. And it continues to be a top contributor to the state's economy, creating a level of tourism that helps establish its identity as a monumental city, as coined by the 6th American president, John Quincy Adams. I'm Jose, and this is the city of Baltimore. If you like what you've seen today, please subscribe, give it a thumbs up, and share. If you want to see more in the state of Maryland, please stay tuned for the following video. Until next time.